So yeah, welcome back to the U&E podcast. This time I've got another great guy. I've got Dave Foster with me, and I'm sure a lot of you are going to know his story or know Dave personally, and just what an inspiration he is to so many. So Dave, it's really nice to have you with me, mate.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's a privilege.
It's all good, mate. So Dave, I just want to start with how I always start, and that's how and when did you come to faith, mate?
Well, I was brought up in a Christian family anyway, but obviously, by being brought up in a Christian family, it doesn't necessarily make you a Christian. Because I just believe it's a decision you've got to make yourself. In the church that we were going to, the pastor was he was leading a youth camp. Had a youth camp every year.
Yeah.
I was along to that, and I was actually at the age of 11. I think it's one night in the meeting. I just felt this sort of spirit leading me, and I just made that decision to ask the Lord into my heart and guide me with my life and that.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. Because I think, for you to remember that at 11 years old, I mean, I can't remember. I can't necessarily remember being 11. And I'm 28. I'm 28. You've got years above me. But yeah, I mean, so I'm sure from you being 57 now, right?
That's right. Yeah.
So I'm sure from being 11 to 57, you can see where God's hand's been in those 40 plus years.
Yeah, I can. Yeah. I mean, there have been times when I haven't. Even, well, say I haven't. I knew He was there in it all. But I suppose sometimes it's the decisions I made in life where I've sort of turned my back on Him that things haven't gone right.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so many people can relate to that, where they've maybe backslid or done the opposite to what they know God's calling them to do or asking them to do. And I don't think you'll find many Christians actually who haven't done that.
No, that's right. Yeah.
I mean, it's probably worth mentioning that actually I've just moved in with you actually to talk about doing Christian things.
Yeah.
Because I spoke a bit about on the podcast with Tom Morgan, obviously who you know.
Yeah, yeah. That's a brilliant one as well.
Thank you, mate. Thank you. I spoke about about obviously the passing of Mum, and not knowing where I was going to live, losing the flat, losing Mum, potentially losing Lewis because I wasn't sure how I was still going to co-parent with his mum.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's worth mentioning, like I said to people, Dave's the guy that took me in. I turned up at his house on one day, pretty distraught, broken, didn't really know what I was doing, where I was going, and come up with the question, if you remember.
That's right, I do, yeah.
And I remember just saying to Dave, if you've got a room I can rent off you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was...
Yeah, with knowing you, and what you were going through and everything else, and seeing what you were like, obviously, being a good mate, I wasn't going to see you homeless.
No.
And at the end of the day, I wasn't even at that time particularly worried about the money side of things. I was just worried about you being homeless, and I wanted to take that worry off you so that you've got one less worry. Basically, just doing the Christian thing.
I think that just highlights your character though, because you didn't just help me. You haven't just helped me. You've helped my son. You've helped Lewis. You've gave Lewis a home as well, because
true.
Without that, he wouldn't have had the time with me still that he has.
I see that, yeah, now.
And
didn't see that at the time, but I see it now, yeah.
No, so I'm forever grateful, and no matter how successful I become, where I go, on what corner of the earth I'm on, I will always remember that time, and on that day. I mean, for most people who know me know I'm pretty standoffish. I'm not very cuddly or very warm to many. Warm's probably the wrong words, but I'm not. I come across quite cold and quite standoffish.
Yeah.
But I remember on that day, I asked for a cuddle.
Yeah, I totally remember that.
Yeah.
And I've said to one or two people since. Dino's not a cuddly person, but that day he asked if he could have a cuddle, and I said, "Of course you can." And knowing what he was like, it totally shocked me because we actually stood outside the front of the house.
Yeah.
And he actually asked me, and we had a hug on the drive in front of everybody.
Yeah.
And I was surprised that Dino wanted to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, no, you know me a little bit better. I'm obviously not as cold as what people think I am, but I'm very,
Oh, no.
you know, when it comes to Lewis and stuff, but with people I'm quite standoffish. But they just sort of, that's how I summarise your character, that I felt I could do that as well. I could ask you and not feel like I was going to get any kind of judgment back from that.
Yeah.
You know. But just going into sort of things, knowing you've been here for what, 3 months now.
Yeah.
You know, we've had some really strong debates, great conversations, thought-provoking things.
That's it, yeah.
One of the things that we often come back to when we talk about things is sometimes quote me if I'm wrong, your disappointment sometimes in God, in not feeling like he's honoured you the way you've honoured him what I mean is you've always desired a family, a wife, a couple of kids, and you not being blessed with that. How does that affect your relationship with God, or your belief, should I say?
Well, yeah. I mean, obviously, I've told you, so you know. But yeah, basically, all I've ever wanted out of life really was to get married and have kids and settle down and be happy. I wasn't even worried about money side of things. And I mean, I did get married. I was married 7 years. But that didn't work out. She decided she didn't love me anymore. Swore blind nobody was else was involved. A couple of weeks later, I found out that there was. And I mean, at the time, I was willing to go to relate, trial separation, whatever. She didn't want to know, and I just said to her dad, I can't force her, I've just got to learn to accept it if that's what she wants. And it hurt, it did hurt, and I had questions in my mind. If you're there, God, why are you letting this happen? And in some ways, I suppose I did turn my back on God for a while, because I just felt that he wasn't in it, even though she was from a Christian family as well. But yeah, I mean, it took me probably a good 8 years to get over it totally. I mean, I thought I was over it sooner, but when I look back, it probably was about good 8 years probably. I mean, that's just how much I loved her at the time. And then I'd moved to Swindon because I was living in Newbury at the time, in with my mum and dad, temporary till I sorted myself out. Probably about, I suppose it was probably about 8-9 years later, I met somebody through work. She wasn't Christian. It caused me to backslide a little bit. We lived together. We never got married. We just lived together for about 9 years. At the time, I promised her that I'd always be there for her and never let her down. She'd had a bit of a rough time. She'd had 3 stillbirths. Best mate was killed in a car accident. She'd lost her elder sister that she got on really well with to cancer. And at the time, I didn't actually know that she was on drugs. And in some ways, it just caused me to backslide a bit. I mean, I never dabbled in drugs because I was against them anyway, but it's just one of those things, and I just felt, you know, that the Lord wasn't in it, and just all these questions come into your head. Why are you letting this happen? You know, I'm trying to be a good Christian. And none of us are perfect, but we strive to be as good as we can be. So yeah, I felt a bit let down and disappointed, really. And then I've been on my own for about 12 years again now, I suppose, something like that. Got back into the church, and it just changed my faith in all ways. Don't really know how it did, but I just got back with the Lord and made that pledge that I'd never backslide again. Wouldn't go back to where I was, because things started looking up. Even though I'm still perhaps hurt and disappointed that I haven't got married and had kids. It's, it just hurt deep down. I don't necessarily let it show all the time, but yeah.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I mean, I think when we've had conversations that have been quite regular, when one of us is going to bed, and I think the thing with Dave and I is one of us will say we're going to bed, and then we end up having a conversation on the stairs or on the landing until 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, or a couple of hours.
2 or 3 hours later, yeah.
Yeah, and we usually tend to have quite a heart to heart once every couple of weeks, or once every week or so on the landing or on the stairs about something, whether it's about what you just said about kids or whatever. And I'm always saying kids ain't all they're cracked up to be, and I don't. And that is, by the way, I stopped me saying I don't love my son. I love him more than life. I'd give my life for him. I adore him.
I know you would. I know that. I've seen that.
Absolutely adore him. He's the best thing that ever happened. But what I mean is, when the kids aren't, it's not what it's all cracked up to be. It's the pressures of being a parent in the 21st century of you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't. And then it's when you say to me about not having kids, it makes me realise how lucky I am to have him. You know, because I think I can't remember a time now, or at least I can't remember what it's like to not have a child. If you know what I mean. So I can't really remember what my life was like before.
Yeah.
So I suppose we take it for granted. You know, you with what happened recently, without going into too much detail, when obviously I was unable to talk to anyone.
Yeah.
For a good 7 hours, 8 hours, isolated. It really made me sort of realise what was important in my life. And really, when you're stripped of everything, you're stripped of who you are. You're no longer. I was no longer Dino Clements. I was more, by birth, I was David Clements again, on my own, and stripped of everything, of who I was. And little things like not being able to just have that ability to be able to reach out to somebody, and it really made me really, really appreciate what I have. And then when you say things like that about not having kids, I understand now what it's like when you have. I don't know. It's like when you haven't got them. I can't say that. But to just understand from your point of view what it must be like when you really want something, and then not have it. If anything, I'd say that's more the frustration must be immense.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, it is definitely immense. But I've got to the point now where my faith is so strong. I just think, well, hey ho, that's life. Even though it still hurts deep down, and I still long for it, and it could still happen. It's just, I don't know. It's just persevering with my Christian faith and just trusting in God as much as I can under the circumstances, sort of thing.
Yeah. I think that's far more biblical than you realise. Sometimes, like I say this all the time, that with your faith that you have, that sometimes you don't realise quite how inspiring you are to someone like me. Like, because I sit there and go, well, he hasn't given me what I want. Screw him. And I'm prepared. I'm like that anyway. I'm walking away and I have a hissy fit. I don't ever really truly mean it, but you're like, wow, you don't throw those sissy fits. Which is probably why you call me a diva. um, yeah, Dave calls me a diva quite a bit. He says I throw a few diva fits and hissy fits.
Yeah.
But you don't tend to have those. But I think from seeing it from the outside in though, from you not having those kids, I've said it to you before actually, I feel like you're the church's dad. Do you know what I mean? You're like a dad to everybody at church.
Yeah.
You know, how often did I say it even before I moved in with you?
Yeah, you did, yeah. Yeah, you often said to me that I was your church dad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think what you haven't gained in terms of bloodline, you have gained in the ability to be able to be a father to everybody. Almost like that dad that some people never had.
Yeah, I suppose a lot of that really comes from my nature, because perhaps as a lot of people know that I am, well, a lot of people say I'm too caring and kind and generous. I just think I am a bit, but and okay, I realised sometimes I am too kind, generous and caring for my own good a lot of the time, but it backfires on me. But it's just my nature and I can't help it. It's just the way God's made me, I suppose. It's the looking back now, I suppose, and what you've just asked me in that. I suppose really thinking about it, it's just the God side, the Christian side, how God's made me to be like that.
Yeah.
To show others.
Oh, 100%. 100%. I mean, it's just with character in general. We actually had a conversation before this happened where we talked about something I put on Instagram.
Oh, yeah,
and
yeah.
I wrote a few things, and you actually turned around and said, oh, you don't mind me saying this, the reason you maybe wouldn't go out and say something punchy or something that could be, in quotation marks, controversial, is because you do worry about how people would perceive you.
Yeah.
I hope you don't mind me saying that.
No, it's fine. It's true.
You do worry about the perception, but that you don't want to come across that you want to be known as a nice guy. Whereas I suppose that doesn't necessarily bother me so much. I don't mind being I don't mind being disliked so much for what I say. Whereas your character doesn't allow you to do that.
Yeah.
It goes against your character.
Yeah. I suppose so. In some ways, it depends on what it is, I suppose, really. Perhaps in a non-Christian way, perhaps. I don't care what people think of me. God made me who and what I am, and if they don't like it the way I am, it's tough. But I don't know. Spiritually in the church now, I suppose, I don't know. It's, as I sort of said to you before, I think it's probably subconsciously, perhaps, it's what's the word? I'm just trying to sort of say that it's probably subconsciously. It's not that I don't care about what people think. I don't know, really. It's a hard one. Like I say, it's just subconsciously, I suppose. It's being controversial and saying stuff that people don't like, and deep down it doesn't bother me, but I suppose, like I said, it's just subconsciously, basically.
So the spiritual thing, you don't want to
it probably is
people.
On the spiritual side, probably. Yeah.
Because I mean, and for many people who don't know you as well as I know you, or our friends would know you, you're definitely not a walkover. I'd put my money on that. You're not a walkover. I mean, there are some things, where I thought, oh, David never said anything to me. I could probably get away with this, or not because I'm trying to be naughty or anything like that.
Yeah.
But or some things, like, for example, like yesterday I walked in And I should really quit smoke. Well, I've quit smoking, but quit vaping as well. You know, trying but failing miserably. But I bought myself some CBD oil to just help with mental health stuff, sleep, muscle pain. Perfectly legal. Could buy it over the counter. It's just the extract of it. Now, I didn't realise. Now, I'm anti-drugs completely, so I don't see it that way. I didn't see it as something that would be terribly bad. And I walked in yesterday and I told Dave I bought some. And it kind of went down like a lead balloon. And it got a little bit heated for a little bit. So you definitely no walkover. Even with the debates we've had about the Bible, Christianity, there have been times where you've put your foot down and been like, no, I don't agree with that.
That's it, yeah. Oh, yeah, I mean, if I feel strongly about something, I will put my foot down, and I am quite stubborn on it, to be honest. So I do have some like strong views, perhaps. I don't know. Like I say, everybody doesn't necessarily agree with me. I don't necessarily agree with other people. But everybody's entitled to their own opinion, their own views. All through life, my attitude has been that, you know, you sit down civilly and quietly. Okay, things perhaps get a bit heated at times, but you know, you talk it over in a civil manner and perhaps, you know, discuss it and that. But like I say, if you just can't agree, you just agree to different. There's no hard feelings, basically. Yeah,
I think so. Look, we've never had a rowing match.
Oh no,
We've never had a screaming match, have we?
No, we haven't. No, I mean, you know, like you said, we've often had debates, and okay, they get a bit heated sometimes, but that's nature. But I've really enjoyed them, and they are thought provoking. They make me think. I mean, I don't know. I think they do you as well.
They do, yeah.
But they do make me think, and perhaps in some ways they do perhaps change my views in certain stuff. Not entirely, but they do change it a bit.
Yeah, but it's very hard to change your. I don't want to change your views. I think what's hard is, with what the goal of unity is, unity and equality is to build a bridge of the non-believers and the believers.
Yeah.
And to bridge that gap, because at the moment there is no bridge. There's either you believe or you don't believe. There is nothing in between where the two mix, in what I see anyway. I'm not saying it doesn't happen at all. And to try and just get people like yourself that have been in the church for 40, 50, 60 years, whatever, just to try and modernise some of their views, which is what I say so quite often. Like, you know, when we talk about, you know, some of the things maybe that are so outdated, it's one of the things that really bothers me is divorce in the church. The Church of England, this is going to come across, and people aren't going to like what I'm about to say. They're not going to like what I'm about to say, but they can't argue with a fact. The Church of England is based on divorce. King Henry VIII set up the Church of England because he wanted a divorce. That's the only reason it existed. And yet the Church of England refused to, a lot of times, either remarry people or divorce them. And I sometimes think the church over the centuries, not just where we attend or where we previously attended, but the church in general, nationwide, there's been so many mistakes. And we are on the brink of extinction in 100 years. I truly believe that. I don't know where that's come from. I don't know if it's something in my. I don't know if it's God that's put that number in my head. But I think we face extinction if we don't reverse the damage done now. Because for too long, have people been allowed to get away with things? It's been almost seen as a club, an exclusive club for the few.
Yeah.
And if this doesn't change now, we're done.
Mm.
And this is what we talk about a lot, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, yeah.
And I think you're coming around some of the way my thinking.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I am perhaps a bit old school and old fashioned in some of my views and ways, just the way I've been brought up, I suppose. But I mean, I do agree with a lot of what you say, that you know the church as a whole needs to change. So I think I said to you earlier on that church tends to be just like church people just go into church to worship and enjoy, you know, have a nice time themselves, and deep down, not saying not necessary at all, but perhaps deep down don't really not care, but don't worry too much about other people and trying to get people in, you know.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, that's what we're here for, is to show others the love and care of the church, and sort of as a church family, love each other, care for each other, be there for each other, and not just sort of gather in our sort of holy huddles, as it were, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
You just got to show them and bring them in and show them what true love and care and as it sort of says in the scripture about you know, we've got to strive to be like Christ, basically. And all the caring and loving, and that is trying to show God's love.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's such a probably such a toxic conversation sometimes, because Christians sometimes get their back up. And I'm not slagging anyone off at all. I'm just stating, not just as the church as a whole, Christians get their back up an awful lot.
Yeah.
And it takes themselves very seriously as well. And we are Christians, obviously.
Yeah.
But I think, as I said in my statement I made on Instagram, I see far more godly instances and things in atheists and agnostics than I do in a lot of Christians. And that won't sit well with people. I know what I've just said won't sit well. But that's the fact. That I see far less judgment, far more acceptance, you know, in the world sometimes than I do in our church. Not our church specifically, but in the Church of England.
As a whole, yeah.
Yeah. And that's got to change. You know?
Yeah.
Because where else in the world could you make someone, say, a single mother, make her feel like she isn't welcome, and that be okay?
Yeah.
You couldn't.
No.
I mean, we've had conversations with people that don't feel like they fit in.
Yeah.
You know, and they've been a Christian for a long time.
Yeah.
It's hard, Dave. You've been a Christian a lot longer than I have, so you know it's hard. But
yeah. I mean, like I say, I've been in church most of my life, apart from the couple of times I did backslide, seeing different things. And like I say, you know, you never find a perfect church.
no.
Same as you won't find anything in this world perfect. No matter what walk of life it is, nothing's perfect.
No.
You know, we, like I said before, we strive to be Christ-like and try to be perfect, but none of us will be until we get to heaven. But you know,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just, I don't know, it's just one of those things that
It is. It is. You're right.
just happens that way, I suppose. People's attitudes got changed, their thought process, I suppose. Mine is gradually changing. You know, I do take things seriously, or try to take them as seriously as I can when I need to. But I'm not saying I do all the time and I'm perfect with it, but you know, we all make mistakes.
Yeah, of course they do.
But God still loves us, still cares. But yeah, and like you said, you know, perhaps atheists are not. I don't know. I can never say that word.
Atheists and agnostics.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Even them, you know, I've said it to you before when we've had conversations that, again, like Tino said, it might be thought provoking and controversial and all that, but in my view, you know, atheists and that, even though they say they don't believe in a God, but by saying they don't believe in a God, they're actually acknowledging there is a God by saying it in the first place.
Yeah. I'm with you.
So, I mean, if there's any out there, it might be just worth giving it a thought.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm with you on that. That's something I never thought about before. And I always thought I had bases covered until Dave said that ages ago. He said it once, and on the way up, when I was on the way upstairs, I was up to bed, it was supposed to be about midnight, and Dave said that to me, and I thought, why say that to me at 12:30 at night, you know? I thought I had all bases covered and things like I covered, but no, clearly not. So that humbled me a little bit. But it is so. I mean, I'm not saying Christians are terrible people. That's totally not what I'm saying before anyone gets the wrong end of the stick. I'm saying I expect more from us. More from myself as well, included.
Oh, yeah.
Far more. You know, it's... We forget sometimes that Christ didn't hang around necessarily with people who even had a faith.
Mm.
You know, we're talking prostitutes, taxmen, murderers, rapists, you name it. He befriended them.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm not saying to go be friends with murderers and rapists because that's just not safe. But I am saying we should love them.
Oh, yeah, you should still love them, yeah. Yeah.
You know, I'm not saying to anyone to put themselves in danger. But our decision making may be a lot better than theirs, which it is. But as a race, we are not better. We're still equal in God's eyes, even if our decision making is better. And I just feel very sorry for people who, I know so many people who believe in God or believe in a superior being to us.
Yeah.
But they are so turned off by the church. So turned off by it.
Mm.
You know, and even someone like me who's from there, and I try and tell them how great it is, they still don't buy me because they think I've changed. They think I'm now. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So even it's hard. You know. How do we get these people to acknowledge that we aren't different to them, that we still have the same problems?
Yeah, it's a good question. But really, I think, let's say, I haven't grown up in the church. It's always been there. But then saying that, I think in more recent times, the church has changed a bit in their views towards that.
Yeah.
I think going back to what I was saying a little bit earlier about people that go to church, get in their holy huddles, and they're just there to worship and do their thing, and not really worrying about other people.
Yeah.
But I think it has changed in recent years a fair bit, but you know we still got a long way to go to improve it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean it's just a lot of people that have come to church and stopped going have just had like bad experiences, and we've got to sort of really look into that and improve on that. Like you say, you know, I'm not saying all Christians are bad.
No.
You know, generally
They're all decent.
you know, they're all decent and do care and all that.
Yeah.
Sometimes at the end of the day, like I say, we're all human. We don't necessarily always show it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's exactly it. And this isn't meant to be a Christian bashing thing. This is just meant to us to be honest.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Which sometimes, again, we're not. We're particularly bad at being honest about the problems.
Mm.
You know, which is probably why
Yeah, we are.
we're in such a state we're in. You know, whether it be cover-ups with what's gone on with child abuse, you know, sexism, the things that we've covered up and the things we've refused to acknowledge. But the time has come now where we need to be more honest with the outside world.
Mm. Yeah.
The time has come, and people in the world where we live in a world of deception and deceit, shouldn't the church be the most transparent and the most honest?
Yeah, sure, yeah. Yeah.
You know, we should be that beacon and that trailblazer of honesty and transparency. You know, the reason I say it is something you mentioned the other day when we were at Barby Castle and went for the walk.
All right. Yeah.
And I'll let you finish that bit off. What you were saying the other day about the lights in the distance and that.
Oh yeah, yeah. When you said about you wanted to go for a walk somewhere quiet and quite high that you felt closer to God. And it was sort of getting late in the day when we came away, and you stood there and you were offering up, well, mind-blowing prayer basically, and I sort of just stood with my back to you listening, looking out in the distance, and where it's getting dusk I saw the lights in the distance, and it just brought to me, I just had it come to me that, you know, we are that light in the darkness, and sort of go out and let your light shine before men. So yeah, I mean, there was another one that I can't remember now that I came up with as well. I don't know if you remembered it, but
I think it was about Jesus being the light of the world, isn't
that's
it?
Yeah, Jesus being the light of the world, and that's how we, that's how we should be.
Yeah. It's not always easy though, is it? I mean,
well, no, like I say, we live in a human world. We're all human, and human nature sometimes just takes over.
Yeah.
Don't not necessarily mean it to, but
yeah,
sometimes.
I mean, when we were doing our Bible study, or attempts to do our Bible study the other day, when I was talking about man now, and when I say man, I mean mankind.
Yeah.
And another controversial, I probably said that I believe the devil's winning the battle. That actually the devil was winning the battle of the human souls at the moment. God will win the war. I promise you that. You know that. That's a guarantee. God will win the war. But at the moment, the devil is winning the battle. He is everywhere. But so people are far more attracted to the devil than they are to God at the moment. You know, whether it be having false idols, desires, everything. It's go on Instagram, and there's Kim Kardashian, there's all these celebrities who people are idolising and wanting to look like physically, and mentally wanting to be like these people.
Yeah.
And You know, it's like you watch a music video now. You watch a new music video from Cardi B or Nicki Minaj, and she's sat there twerking on stage, shaking her ass, right? Sex sells. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it does.
You look
yeah.
at the porn industry.
Mm.
The porn industry, it all sells, mate.
Yeah.
You know, the drug culture we live in.
That's it, yeah.
And the devil's winning the souls because people are far more interested in what they want than putting the. Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
And that ain't going to change until he comes back. When Christ comes back, then it all changes.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yeah.
But at the moment, God is losing, and that's going to be really hard for people to hear.
It's like we were saying the other day about the devil. You know, at the end of the day, he's a fallen angel.
Mm.
So if he's a fallen angel, he must be beautiful. People paint him with as as we know it humanly, a devil with horns and everything else.
Yeah, yeah.
And where he's so beautiful as he's a fallen angel, in a way that's how he convinces people
Yeah.
that sex, drugs, rock and roll, whatever, is all good. I'm not saying it's all bad, but you know, it's by that beauty he shows people what humans think is beauty.
Yeah.
And tries to convince them that way that, you know, to follow him as no God, and you know, that's what he just tries to do.
Yeah. Exactly that. It's the serpent in the Genesis all over again.
Mm.
You know? You will have some people say, "Oh, you can do that. If God really loves you, he ain't gonna, you know, if God's really all this forgiving, he'll forgive you, you can do this and just say sorry." Where have we heard that before? We heard that in the Bible. Did God really say that? You know?
Yeah, yeah.
It's the serpent all over again. And people can't see it. Or they don't want to see it, at least.
Yeah.
And that's terrifying. And I know that maybe when our vicar listens to this, he might think this has hit hard on some of the subjects and probably strongly disagree. In that, you know, but that's fine. You know, we can disagree with each other. This is just my views. You don't necessarily have to agree. It's just my views on how I see it.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, as you know, I don't always agree
No,
with you.
no, you don't. No, you don't. But it's, you know, you can still be friends. You can you can disagree and still be close friends.
Yeah, of course you can.
I mean, you look at Ben, one of my best mates, Ben.
Yeah.
Obviously, we won't go into too much detail. Political affiliation, if I said that right. I'm completely one way, he's completely the other way on a certain subject.
Mm.
But we're still best friends.
Yeah, yeah.
We just don't argue about it. You know,
Yeah.
we live in a world, Dave, where cancel culture, you don't agree with what I say, smack, you're done, get out of there, we don't hear from you again.
Yeah.
Or we live in a world where, you know, I'm often struck when I think, how selfish, how self-centered must you be, and how entitled must you be to think you can go through life without anyone ever saying anything you don't like or agree with. Like, how self-entitled must you be to think that? Like, Ricky Gervais says it perfectly. Stop saying something's offensive and start saying, I found that offensive. Because what's offensive to someone isn't offensive to the other person. You know?
Yeah, true, I suppose. Yeah.
I can't live in this world where we're so scared to say certain things. You know? And we need to get out of that habit. Especially in the church. Where we're so scared to speak out about what we really think through the fear of persecution.
Yeah.
In actual fact, I think we're called to we're called to stand for what we believe is right.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, true.
I mean, That's just my take. That's just my 5 pence on that. You know, my little rant.
Yeah.
You know, that's not even Christian advice. That's just worldly advice as well. That I wish we'd get away from that. But I mean, but you say that, don't you? About how the world's so different to how you knew it when you were growing up.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is that when I was younger, things weren't spoke about so much. But where human nature is sort of force these issues, and a lot of these issues come up, it's made it more to the forefront, brought stuff more to the forefront, and it's talked about more.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, for example, like mental health, you know?
Yeah, it's a big one.
You know?
Especially with men.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, you know, I'm not denying the fact when my marriage broke up. I mean, I was signed off work for 3 months. I was on Prozac for 9 months.
Yeah.
You know, men do suffer it. You know, I'm not saying it's just men because I'm a man, but you know, women do as well.
Yeah.
But I suppose both equally, men and women. Years ago, it was never spoke about.
No.
Because I suppose, in a way, human nature sort of said that it was shameful, you know,
Yeah.
to have these things. But you need to talk about it to get to the bottom of it and understand each other and help each other and be Christian. Not say just be Christian with each other about it. Love them, care for them, help them.
Yeah. And I think that leads me on perfectly, actually, Dave, to the last question. What do you want your legacy to be when you're gone? I love that. I love it. Everybody has the same reaction. Ask that.
I knew you'd ask something like that. Yeah, I suppose in a way, not to be big-headed. It's just that I've been told by lots of people, and I think I mentioned one or two things earlier on, that I think I'd like to be remembered that perhaps something on my gravestone that he was caring, kind, generous. Like I say, some people say too much, and I sometimes agree that I am for my own good.
Yeah.
But yeah.
No. You're bang on the money with that. Caring, kind, loving, an all-out good guy.
It's just my nature. I just try to care as much as I can for people, try to love them, see both sides of people's stories and try not to judge them if I can.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, it's not for me to judge, it's up to God to judge.
The world would be in a better place if I had more Daves. It really would. And I'm a Dave too, so I'm saying
I don't know about that.
Yeah. But, no, I mean it. If more people saw the world the way you saw it, Dave, we'd be in a better place. We really would. We might not get much done. We talk a lot.
Yeah.
But, you know, we've probably never had the Industrial Revolution. But, but no, Dave, I've loved having you, mate, and I've loved having a chat with you.
Yeah, it's been good. Been really good.
Thanks for coming on, bud.
That's okay. You're welcome.
Cheers, mate.